have pretty little pictures on them. Who's used Font Awesome before? Nobody's used Font Awesome? Wow. Behold, Font Awesome. That would be fontawesome.io. The iconic font and CSS Toolkit. What does that mean? Well, it is a font with a bunch of little icons in it. It uses the extended Unicode character set. In other words, symbols that don't already have symbols associated with them, that don't print anything in most fonts. And it puts little icons in them. Why use a font for this? Because fonts are vectors as opposed to bitmaps. Meaning, it doesn't say, this pixel goes here, this pixel goes here to make this picture. It uses math. It says, draw a curve from here to here with this, you know, whatever. Well, I don't know what the pieces of math are, but anyway. You get the idea. A line from here to this point, etc. So no matter how big they get, like look at these enormous things, they still look fine. They don't look jagged at any size. That way, if we make our font size bigger or smaller, or the user does that, they still look sharp. So this was designed specifically for that. So let's go ahead and download it. We could use a CDN like we have for Foundation, but it'd also be nice to learn how to download these things and put them in your project. So that's how we're going to do it this time. Click download, ignore all this stuff and say no thanks, just download Font Awesome 4. Here we go. Has a CSS folder, a fonts folder, a text file, and lesson CSS. Lesson CSS are languages that compile down to style sheets. They have a slightly more convenient syntax. Support for things like variables, but nicest of all, nesting. So if you need to go really deep with descendants and stuff, you don't have to keep repeating the whole hierarchy in your selectors. All we need are the fonts and one of the two CSS files. We have the minimized version and the non-minimized version. So open up your project folder. I'm going to say open space dot here. You could say start space dot, I think, on Windows. If not, you could always go here, find any of your files, right-click and say reveal in Finder or reveal in Explorer. And that'll open it up. And then I'm going to copy the fonts folder. I'm going to hold down Alt to copy instead of move. And then I need one of the CSS files. So I'm going to go ahead and create a CSS folder. And I'm going to drag the minimized version over to that. Let's look in code then and see. Now I do have a CSS folder with one file in it. I do have a fonts folder with all these fonts in it. Different platforms support different web fonts formats. So now in our index.html, we can add another link. So I'm going to put this after Foundation, but before our own. rel equals style sheet, href equals css slash font awesome min css. And while we're at it, I suppose we may as well move our CSS file in there too. So let's drag app CSS into the CSS folder. And then don't forget to update the link to say css slash app.css. If we refresh our page, we should see that our styles still work. We didn't screw up that link. Yep, we didn't. And if I look at the sources tab, In the CSS folder here, I should see both app CSS and font awesome min CSS. So that looks like it's working. So here's this line in Slack. Yeah.
So what's the difference between using the min CSS file and the normal CSS file?
It just takes up less space. It's less readable because it's gotten rid of all the white space, all the line breaks and stuff. And but it saves bandwidth. On something like Font Awesome, which isn't very big in the first place, it only saves like 3K. But on some other things like Foundation, it saves a ton. And it really adds up. So we don't need the non-minified version. So we're just using the minified version. It's not going to make any difference to us. We're not going to try to open and read that style sheet. And we can still see the rules in the inspector if we need to. So how do we use this thing? Let's find an icon that we actually want to use. How about we start with remove? If I look at the menu here and go to the icons page, you see there are 675 icons. Just tons of them. All kinds of things. Let's search for trash. Yeah, there's trash and trash O for outline. As well as these things that it thinks you might also be looking for if you're looking for trash. I like trash O personally. I think it would look really nice. So let's find our remove button. And where the word remove was, I'm going to put this icon in between the opening and closing tags. So we'll use an I element, which is semantically meaningless. That's the old italics element that was added by Netscape before the EM. Actually, I think EM may have even been there. I can't remember. But now if we want to italicize something, we use the emphasis element instead of I. So I really has no inherent meaning. So we'll just add a couple classes to that. First, we'll add the class FA for Font Awesome. Then we add a class specific to the icon we want. If you click this, you'll see it tells you what to do. FA trash O. So FA trash O. See, it has an example here. Notice it also adds this attribute, aria hidden equals true, for the sake of accessibility. What that does is it means screen readers won't try to read an icon, which is kind of useless. Now, of course, it would be nice if they read something instead. We're not going to get that far into how to make these things accessible right now. But we may as well add that one attribute. That's not so hard. So an I with a class of FA, and then one specific to the icon we're using, and we added the attribute aria hidden true for screen readers. And let's check it out. Oh yeah, look at that handsome icon. I loves it.
For some reason it was just like a square on this one.
Okay, so something isn't quite right. We'll look at it in a minute. What about fave? How about a star? Oh yeah, we got all kinds of stars. Heck, we got these half stars and stuff in case you want to like make some sort of rating system or something. So FA star seems good enough. So inside fave, instead of the words FAV, we'll say I.fa.fa star. Oops. And again, we'll add aria hidden equals true for the sake of accessibility. See how that looks? Oh, lovely. Just lovely. How about add dino? That's too wordy, man. I just want like a plus. Let's search for plus. Sure enough, plus in a circle, plus in a square, plus in a different square, Google plus, calendar plus, user plus. How about just plus? So let's find that submit button where it now says add dino. I'm going to again add an I, class of FA, class of FA-plus, and an attribute. We could use our attribute selector here of aria hidden equals true. Expand that. And there we go. Just add some line breaks. Check it out. Beautiful. Let's inspect one of these. Let's inspect the star. So I have the I element selected here. And let's look at the CSS rules. So it looks like the FA class adds these rules. Display inline block. And it sets the font to font awesome. It sets the size and some other stuff. And then, I don't actually see where FA star is doing anything. It's actually not doing it to the I itself. If we expand this, we'll see : before. Then we see a rule. It says content, and then whatever this is. So this is the Unicode character within Font Awesome where the star symbol appears. So before is a pseudo element. We've used pseudo classes, but this is a pseudo element where it's actually creating a new element immediately before this one using just CSS and sticking this content inside it. Kind of interesting. So that's just how it works. As far as we're concerned, it's magic. It just does what we want. That is Font Awesome.